Most of you guys probably already know what catfishing is. However, for those that don't know, it's basically when a person is trying to perceive another person as them when in reality they're not. Well, here are two truly disturbing horror stories accounted by some people on Reddit. This is one of the most extremely traumatizing experiences I've ever had. I was in this group on Facebook where people share different kinds of stories, mainly funny stories. I usually post comments there using my dummy account, and most of the people there use dummy accounts as well. I had a fun conversation with this guy using a dummy account named Luffy, who claimed to be 21 years old. We exchanged messages on Facebook without actually adding each other. We both found out that we live nearby each other, so we decided to meet up and have lunch in a mall near our school. I chose a place to meet where it's really crowded. Since I had a dress rehearsal for a play, he told me that he would wait for me in a burger stand near our school. The night before, we sent each other pictures. I was excited to meet him since he looked pretty fun to hang out with. By 4 p.m., I stood beside the burger stand. A heavily tinted red car stopped at the street in front of me. Then, I received a text message from him asking me to go inside the red car. Since I've read a lot of stories here on Let's Not Meet, I decided to go with my instincts and sent him a text saying that I wouldn't get in the car unless he goes out and shows himself. What happened next made me promise myself that I would never meet anyone from the internet ever again. A man, most likely in his 30s, went out of the car and started to clutch me by my arm and kept tugging me. I screamed like I have never screamed before, making it noticeable since there are civilians there as well. The guy who watched over the burger stand came to us and asked what's wrong, clearly concerned. "She's my daughter. She's in big trouble. She ran away from home," were this creep's defense. I denied it every time, and the burger guy told him that he would alert the guards from our school. That's when Luffy let go of my arm, went in his car, muttered to himself and drove away. When the guards came, I told them everything, and I was never let out of the school that day without my guardian picking me up. So, Luffy, whoever or wherever the fuck you are, let's not meet again. I used to date a guy named Norman back in high school. I'm 29 years old now and have a 9-year-old daughter, so this must have been 12 to 13 years ago roughly. I guess we were first each other's real love relationship, and we even wore promise rings, which was a pretty big deal back then. We talk about getting married and what our life together would be like. Basically things people say or do when they've been together for a year as teenagers. As things go, we began to argue and fell into a cycle of breakup and getting back together. I was immature and stupid, and I ended up getting together with another guy during one of our breakup periods. It became a messy love triangle situation, and Norma and I finished for good after I chose this other guy. Not my proudest of moments, but I was 17 and stupid. Fast forward a few years later, I made a Facebook account, and out of curiosity, one day, I decided to look up Norman. We added each other on Facebook and I messaged him apologizing for what had happened between us. I was happily married by the time, and we had just had my first daughter. Norman was a good sport about it, and we remained close friends via social media. I really only ever talked to him to say happy birthday or randomly comment on a status. Another few years go by, and Norman gets into a relationship with a woman named Marissa. I was happy to see him move on, My marriage didn't work out well, but I was happy with my life and with raising my daughter by myself. During Christmas one year, I found an old Polaroid picture of me and Norman at a cabin weekend we had together when we were dating. I messaged him, telling him about it and recall how much we had fun. He didn't reply, and later I found out I was no longer on his friends list. A few months later, I got a message from Marissa. She basically said I was a whore and a slut, and that she saw the message I had sent him months ago. She told me to never ever contact him again, and that I needed to get over him. She went on to say how a charm bracelet he gave me was nothing compared to what he buys her, and that I was a cheap fuck he had in high school. She said the silver promise rings were bullshit, and that he had bought her a gorgeous golden engagement ring with several diamonds. Well then, I never responded. I got off of Facebook not long afterwards for a short period of time, before remaking an entire new profile and adding only close friends and family. Over the next few years, I would get ads from people I didn't even know in social media. I knew it was her because the first account I mistakenly added began to send me abusive messages saying I was a loose slut and an attention-hungry whore who would never find true love. Afterwards, I never added anyone else I didn't personally know. I don't know how she kept finding my other accounts. She tried to add me on Instagram, Twitter, and she even somehow found my phone number and tried to add me on WhatsApp. When Snapchat became a thing, I got an ad from a user who had one of my Facebook friends' names as their username and sent me snaps of whore and bitch in cursive handwriting on paper. I kept blocking her and maintaining no contact because honestly there was nothing else I felt I could do. This year, I joined a dating app where I met a guy within the first few weeks of being on it who I thought was amazing. His name was Nate, and he had a few fair pics of himself. He was an average looking guy, so it didn't raise any flags with me that this suspiciously model looking guy was trying to talk to me. He said he had an Android phone so he couldn't FaceTime, but we could talk on the phone. It was definitely a man's voice. We texted a lot over the next few weeks and things seemed to be going well enough to lead to a meetup. We scheduled a time and place, and a week before, he asked me about the past relationship. I didn't think much of it when he asked me about my past real relationship, as he seemed keen on the details and he asked me if I still had feelings for my ex. I reassured him that I didn't, but I also didn't hate him because I was the one who messed up and he was actually a really good guy. We talked a lot about that relationship, and he then said he was so looking forward to meeting me. We had chosen to meet at an outdoor cafe because I didn't like the idea of meeting at my house without me actually knowing who this guy was. I was so excited, as it was my first date in a long time. So, imagine my confusion when I saw a woman spot me and smile and started walking over. I was too fucking shocked to say anything when she sat down. And yes, it was Marissa. She looked so smogged and said, "Hey baby," and kept smiling. She confessed it was her. At that point, I honestly just wanted it to know why. What did I ever do to this chick to get all these reactions from her, and for her to actually invest time in doing all of this to me? Basically, this is what she told me. Almost 6 years ago now, when she and Norman got back together, he told her all about me in our first relationship. She went on his friends list and saw me there and went through my pictures and posts, trying to see what he saw in you. Then, when I messaged him, she confronted him over why I had any pictures of me and him still, and why he needed to have me on Facebook. He deleted me and promised her not to talk to me ever again. She told me she hated me, and she said I was a stupid bitch who loves playing with people's emotions, and that she wanted me to give me a taste of it. She said she made up accounts so she can keep an eye on me and make sure I wasn't going to be in the same city as her and Norman. She would walk by places I'd say I'll be if I was to make sure he wasn't meeting up with her in secret. She knew where I worked through my LinkedIn. She said the guy who I spoke to on the phone as Nate was her friend who was on it and wanted it to see me go down. She said she had originally planned to make me fall in love with Nate and then cheated on me, but she couldn't stand to wait so long. The most disturbing part, however, was when it came to my daughter. This woman had actually become extremely fixated on my daughter. She was convinced that she shared some of Norman's features and became obsessed, thinking that I had a kid with him who I kept a secret from him. She told me to not even think about suddenly revealing it to him in some ploy to get back together with him, and that she would be the only one to give him a baby. I was beyond horrified. It's not very exciting, but all I remember doing was getting up from the table and telling her to never contact me again. I got in my car and sat there in silence for a bit. The first thing I did was call my daughter's school and alert the front desk of a possible situation where someone who was neither I nor her father would try to pick her up. I called my brother afterwards and told him about what happened. He urged me to call the police. I did, but ended up getting a whole spell about if I don't have any documented proof it's her, or saying any of those things, they couldn't help me out. It's been 2 months, and I haven't heard anything from her, and my brother thinks that maybe she got what she wanted by asserting herself as Norman's one and only, and now she would leave me alone. Still, I have massive paranoia when it comes to what I post on social media, and where she might be lurking next. I've told my family and close friends about this situation and warned them not to add any strange profiles or people they don't know. I told my neighbors about the situation and showed them a picture of her so they could call the police if they saw anyone like her around the house. I wouldn't put it past her to know my address and start peeping in our windows, or worse. I also changed the locks as a precaution